قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him, بل دخوله في الوجود بمشيئة الله وقدرته. Rather, anything's entrance into existence, yani it's starting to exist, is by the will of Allah and His power. Yani by His will, He makes it one way or another. By His power, He makes it exist from nothing. بِتَقْدِيرِهِ وَعِلْمِهِ الْأَزَلِيِّ, by His destining and His eternal knowledge. Yani, and in accordance with His eternal knowledge. لِقَوْلِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, and that's due to the saying of Allah, exalted is He, وَخَلَقَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, and He created everything. أي أحدثه من العدم إلى الوجود, meaning He made it occur from nothingness into existence. فلا خلق بهذا المعنى لغير الله. Thus, there is no creation by this meaning for other than Allah. قال الله تعالى, said Allah, exalted is He, هل من خالق غير الله, is there any creator other than Allah? That's a rhetorical question. No, there is no creator other than Allah. الشرح, the explanation, أن كل ما دخل في الوجود, is that everything that entered into existence, أي وجد بعد أن كان معدوما, meaning that it existed after it was nothing, يعني after it wasn't anything. من الأعيان أي الأجسام والجواهر مما يقوم بذاته, whether those were volumes or things of substance, meaning bodies that are made of particles, and also the particles themselves that are not bodies before they unify, before they fuse together, amongst that which has an independent standing, amongst that which can stand on its own. Yani, it doesn't exist through something else. So, my mouse stands on its own, and my phone stands on its own. Neither of those, its existence follows the other, or is dependent on the existence of the other. يَقُومُ بِذَاتِهِ, it has an independent standing, or an independent standing. It's self-contained. وَالْأَعْمَالِ, or whether those were deeds. مَا كَانَ مِنْهَا خَيْرًا, those that were good. وَمَا كَانَ مِنْهَا شَرًّا, and those that were evil. وَالنَّوَايَا, and the intentions. And this word, النَّوَايَا, some have objected to the Shaykh for this plural, and they said that we didn't find that the word niyyah is pluralized by the word nawaya, and rather the plural of niyyah is niyyat, not nawaya. So that's what they said, and what I heard is that Sheikh Abdullah said concerning this, Li fiha naql, I have concerning this word transmission. Wal khawatir, and including the involuntary thoughts or random thoughts. Allati la namliku man'aha, those that we do not possess the ability to prevent them. Min antarid, we can't stop them from occurring, from crossing our minds. Huwa bi khalqi Allahi ta'ala, all of that is by the creating of Allah. Exalted is He. فيدخل في ذلك أعمال العباد الاختيارية. Thus, included in that are the voluntary deeds of the slaves. وغير الاختيارية, and the involuntary actions. We're not going to call them deeds, though. We're going to call the voluntary actions deeds. And we're not going to call the involuntary actions deeds. We're going to, inshallah, reserve the word deed for what is linked to accountability. وهذا موافق ومنسجم مع قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this is compliant and harmonious with the saying of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. إن قلوب بني آدم بين إصبعين من أصابع الرحمن يقلبها كيف يشاء. Indeed, if we translate it literally, the hearts of the sons of Adam are between two fingers of the fingers of Ar-Rahman. يقلبها كيف يشاء, turning them as He wills, turning them however He wills. Shaykh will explain. وليس معنى الحديث وصف الله بالجارحة. This hadith does not mean to describe Allah with an organ. That's why I said it literally translates like that, but that's not the meaning of it. That literal translation that causes one to imagine body parts, and that literal wording there, that's not the intended meaning of the hadith. كما زعمت المشبهة, as the God comparers have claimed, to them that is the meaning of the hadith. إنما هو بمعنى تقريب. Merely this is a figure of speech. أي أن الله يتصرف بقلوب عباده. It means that Allah does what He wills with the hearts of His slaves. So يتصرف, يعني, one might translate that word as Allah deals with the hearts of His slaves as He wills. Or, I wouldn't translate it as activity here, activity. But in some places you might use that translation. Not here though, for me. So just in simple terms, يتصرف, He does with those hearts, the hearts of His slaves, كما يشاء, as He wills. من غير أن يلحقه تعب ومشقة, without being caught by any exhaustion or difficulty. بل بمحض إرادته الأزلية, rather it is by His mere eternal will, by mere eternal will, وقدرته الأزلية, and His eternal power. يحدثها من العدم إلى الوجود. He makes it occur from nothingness into existence. So here, بمحض إرادته. Mahd means unadulterated. So by mere will, that means with no effort, no tool, no motion. So that's why you want to be mindful or careful for your heart. Sometimes if you watch some media these days, really they have characters in their stories that really they're saying that these can create, but they don't say it like that. One example is, for example, in Star Trek. So there's a character in Star Trek called Q. Some of the later ones, not the original Star Trek. Q. Supposedly, he's from a race called the Q. They can do anything they want to do. He'll just appear if he wants to appear, and he'll disappear if he wants to disappear, or he'll just turn you into something else. Whatever he wants to do. He'll just, for example, you'll be standing there, all of a sudden you have a new outfit on because he wanted you to have one. So what are they saying then? This is creating. This is by his mere will only. He just wants it, and it is. So be mindful about that. The kufr that exists in lots of media. Also, the so-called time travel. That's a big thing in a lot of media. And that's denial of destiny, time travel. It's kufr. So, وَقَدْ كَانَ مِنْ دُعَاءِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ, and amongst the supplications of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is Allahumma musarrif al-qulub sarrif qulubana ala ta'atik. Oh Allah, changer of the hearts, direct our hearts, or director of the heart, musarrif, so changer, really, very literally. Changer of the hearts, sarrif qulubana, direct our hearts, ala ta'atik, yani to your obedience. Approximately it means like that. Rawahu Muslimun wal Bayhaqi wal Hakim. That's narrated by Muslim and Al Bayhaqi and Al Hakim. وخالفت في ذلك المعتزلة, and the Mu'tazila opposed, yani dissented in this case. أي في أفعال العبد الاختيارية, meaning concerning the voluntary deeds of the slaves. فقالت إن العبد هو خالقها, they said, indeed, the slave is their creator. فكفرهم العلماء المحققون, and then the precise scholars, the exact scholars, the meticulous scholars deem them as kuffar. كأبي منصور البغدادي, like Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi, والإمام البلقيني, and Imam al-Bulqini. وهو من أكابر أصحاب الوجوه من الشافعية, and he is one of the greatest mujtahids within the Shafi'i madhab. Not an absolute mujtahid himself though. والإمام أبي الحسن شيث بن إبراهيم al-Maliki, and Imam Abu al-Hasan, whose name is Shif, the son of Ibrahim, the Maliki, وغيرهم, and others. وكذبت في ذلك المعتزلة قول الله تعالى. The Mu'tazila concerning this have contradicted the saying of Allah, exalted is He, وخلق كل شيء, and He created everything, and there's no exception to that. وقوله, and they contradicted His saying, هل من خالق غير الله, is there a creator other than Allah? وغيرهما, and other verses. ومعنى الخلق هنا, and the meaning of خلق here, creating, is الإبراز من العدم إلى الوجود. الإبراز من العدم إلى الوجود, manifesting from nothingness to existence. وَلَفْظَةُ شَيْءٍ, and the single expression, شيء, something, a thing. في هذا الموضع, in this spot, شاملة لكل ما دخل في الوجود, it is inclusive of everything that entered into existence. In this spot. Not always Sometimes the word shay, Allah is meant by it, but not here. That's because Allah is something, يعني He exists. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy upon him. قال النسفي, and Nasafi said, so that's the author of the famous creedal booklet, Al-Aqidah An-Nasafiyah. He said, and this is an indirect quote, not a verbatim quote, not a direct quote. فَإِذَا ضَرَبَ إِنسَانٌ زُجَاجًا. And so, if a human, a person, hit glass, bihajar, with a stone, فَكَسَرَهُ, and thus he broke it. فَالضَّرْبُ وَالْكَسْرُ وَالْإِنْكِسَارُ بِخَلْقِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Then the hit and the break and the shattered state of the glass is by the creation of Allah, the creating of Allah. Ta'ala, exalted is He. فَلَيْسَ لِلْعَبْدِ إِلَّا الْكَسْبِ. Therefore, the slave has nothing but acquisition, acquiring his deed, not creating it, but earning it. وَأَمَّا الْخَلْقِ, as for creating, فَلَيْسَ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, it is not for anyone other than Allah. قال الله تعالى, said Allah, exalted is He, لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. For every soul, yani, in favor of every soul, that's the meaning of for here, in favor of. For every soul is what it acquired, and against every soul is what it acquired. لها ما كسبت, for it, for every soul, is what it acquired of good, because we said in its favor, so it means good. كسبت من الخير. وعليها, and against it, against every soul, is, so that means it's a bad deed. مكتسبت, what it acquired of bad. And you can see that we translated these two words the same, kasabat and iktasabat, and they do mean the same. We actually talked about that a session or two ago. If you remember, we said sometimes, many times, if ta'ala means fa'ala, yani what has the pattern of if ta'ala means fa'ala. We were talking about ikhtalaqa and khalaqa. So here's iktasabat and kasabat. So they have the same meaning, especially as a creedal terminology. In the science of creed, when you talk with creedal terms here, not talking about the tafsir of this ayah, I mean just as mustalah in aqidah, jargon in aqidah, kasb and iktisab are the same. They mean the same. The slave's acquisition of deeds, not creating them. In this ayah, though, the one with more letters was given to the case that's against the slave. The one with less letters or fewer letters, the one with fewer letters was given to the case that's for, in the favor of the slave. That's because of the slave's inclination to do bad. As a general statement, of course. The slaves in general, they would rather sin because that's enjoyable, usually. And they would find it more difficult to obey because that involves work. It's a human being. This all boils down to the fact that the human being is not inclined to work. So I remind myself and I remind you, when it's time to make wudu and pray, maybe one feels something in his heart because he's doing something. And now he has to stop doing what he's doing. He has to interrupt what he's doing to go make wudu and pray. Whether that's sleep or whether that's something else he's doing that he's engulfed in. So then his self locks there a little bit or resists there or is not inclined. And because he fears Allah, he's going to get up and do it anyway. So that's what we're talking about here. And that's the difference between those pious, one of the differences between those pious slaves of Allah and the normal and sinful slaves of Allah. You got the normal ones who aren't the pious ones, even if they're not the sinful ones, though. And you have the sinful ones. The pious ones, those ones, when it's time to make wudu, they're like, yippee, it's time to make wudu. And then when it's time to pray, they're so happy, and then they go to pray. They don't find that, what a lot of people would find in their hearts. So may Allah enable us to be like that. Ameen. Ash-sharh, the explanation. Al-darbu huwa fi'lu al-abd. The hit is the act of the slave. وَقَدْ يَحْصُلُ مِنْهُ انْكِسَارٌ وَقَدْ لَا يَحْصُلُ. And it could be that there occurs from this hit a shattering, or it might not occur. Shattering in the glass. وَالْكَسْرُ هُوَ فِعْلُ الْعَبْدِ. And the breaking, that's the slave's deed. الذي فعله في الزجاج. It's what he did to the glass. بواسطة الرمي. By way of throwing. بالرمي بالحجر. By way of throwing the stone. So that's what the Sheikh says here. The breaking is the slave's deed by an intermediary. وَأَمَّا الْإِنْكِسَارُ. And as for the shattering, the shattered state, فَمَا يَحْصُلُ مِنَ الْأَثَرِ فِي الزُّجَاجِ. It is the trace that occurs, that happens to the glass. فَلَيْسَ لِلْعَبْدِ مِنْ عَمَلِهِ إِلَّا الْكَسْبِ. And so there is nothing for the slave throughout all of this. There's nothing of the slave's deed is anything but acquisition. It's nothing more than or other than acquiring, not creating. وهو توجيه العبد قصده وإرادته نحو العمل. That is for the slave to direct his goal, to make a goal or to set a target and to direct his will towards a deed. فَيَخْلُقُهُ اللَّهُ عِنْدَ ذَلِكَ. And then Allah will create it upon that. When he wants to do it, Allah will create it for him. What is that? So if you want to move your fingers and your toes and shift your eyes, just because you wanted to, then you were able to. And we just said Allah created that. So what does this mean? It means that Allah creates for you what you want to do normally. When I say what you want to do, I mean within the things in your means. So he created us such that we have limbs and we can move and we can manipulate the things around us. The norm is that Allah will create in us the ability to do that when we want to. That's what makes us accountable. That norm there. That's why if you don't pray, You, without an excuse, you are sinful. You have no excuse. You can't say Allah didn't will, so subhanallah, he didn't will for me. I would have never been able to do it. Because you didn't know what he willed and you knew what he commanded. And it wasn't until the prayer time was out that you knew that Allah willed for you to choose for yourself to not pray. And had you chosen for yourself to pray, then under all normal laws of nature, if you will accept that, then you'll be able to just move, get up and go to the water and collect that water and bring it to your face, etc., and then pray. Qala ta'ala, said the Exalted, Laha ma kasabat, in favor of every soul is what it acquired, ay min al khayr, meaning of the good. Wa alayha ma iktasabat, and against every soul is what it acquired, ay min ash-shar, meaning of the evil. Okay. Wa mana qawlihi ta'ala, and the meaning of his saying, exalted is he, laha ma kasabat, for every soul is what it acquired. Ay linnafsi jaza'u ma amilat. It means that for the self, or the soul, the individual, is the payment of what it did. Min amalil khayr, of good deed. Ay tantafi'u bidhalik, meaning it will benefit from that. Alayha maktasabat, and against it is what it acquired. Ay alayha wabalu maktasabatu min amali shar. Its meaning is that against it is the disaster of what it earned of bad deeds. Ay yadurruha dhalik, meaning that will harm that soul or self. فأثبت الله تعالى الخلق لنفسه, and therefore Allah has confirmed, exalted is he, creating for himself, and he reserved that for himself. He confirmed that it's only his. وَتَمَدَّحَ بِذَلِكَ, and he was praised for being special for that reason. لأنه شيء يختص به, because that's something that's special for him. Like we said before, there's specialness in uniqueness. And the more copies or duplicates or similars there are, the less special a thing is. So, if, for example, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa meant Allah sitting on the throne, then there's nothing special there. So Wahhabi might say, yeah, because it means he's king. It means he has majesty. So it means still there's nothing special there. Because you just described something that exists for others also. So you decrease the special, the novelty, if you want that word there. You know that, for example, if they make, what do they call some things that they put on the market? Limited edition. What does that mean? It means they made only few of them, so that they're so valuable and special. You got to get it while you can. So Allah Ta'ala tamaddah, that means he's praised for being, for that being special to him or particular to him. لأنه شيء يختص به, because it's something that's specific for him. وأثبت للعبد الكسب, and he confirmed for the slave acquisition, acquiring. He confirmed for the slave acquisition, acquiring. Al-kasb, yani he reserved that for the slave. So then, yani neither of those are attributed to the other. The khalq is not attributed to the slave, creating, and the kasb is not attributed to the Lord, acquiring. وهذا هو المذهب الحق. This is the true way. ومن أوضح الأدلة على مذهب أهل الحق, and amongst the clearest of proofs for the school of the people of truth, أي على أن العباد لا يخلقون شيئا من أفعالهم, meaning for the fact that the slaves do not create any of their deeds. قوله تعالى is his saying, exalted is he. فلم تقتلوهم ولكن الله قتلهم وما رميت إذ رميت ولكن الله رمى. If you translated verbatim, it would be, you believers did not kill them, did not slay them in the battle. Rather, Allah killed them. And you, Muhammad, did not throw when you threw. Rather, Allah threw. That's the 17th ayah of Surah Al-Anfal. فَإِنَّ الْقَتْلَ لِلْكُفَّارِ حَصَلَ مِنْهُمْ. How is this such a clear proof? Because indeed, their slaying blasphemers in battle occurred. They did do that. وَنَسَبَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِمْ مَعْنًا مِنْ حَيْثُ الظَّاهِرِ أي الكسب. Allah here, he attributed that to them in meaning from the outward perspective, meaning as an acquisition of theirs. But he negated that slaying from them, from those Muslim fighters, the battle. He negated it from them from the perspective of creating. كذلك رمي الرسول بالحصى, and likewise the messengers throwing pebbles. الذي ملأ أعينهم فانهزموا. Those pebbles, yani some dirt and debris and pebbles that filled their eyes, all of them, every soldier. So that was a miracle of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And thus they were defeated. That happened on more than one occasion, by the way. It's reported for more than one occasion that that's a miracle of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. His taking a handful of pebbles or what's on the ground, yani, and then throwing it at the enemy army and hitting all of them. Also was reported from him, alayhi salatu wassalam, his taking pebbles and throwing it at one of the Jewish citadels, and then it rocked the citadel like a bomb. And the citadel even sunk down into the ground a little bit. And then when the Muslims ran in there, all the Jews who were in there were just shaken, as if they just got hit by a bomb. So those are miracles that Allah gave the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. Those miracles are more impressive than our modern weaponry. Just like he has miracles that are more impressive than our modern technology, like how Allah enabled the Prophet to see many things as a miracle. Allah would create images for him and he would see them on several occasions. That's more impressive than our machines today. So, حصل من الرسول كسبا, that took place from the messenger as an acquisition, not creating. فنسبه الله إليه من حيث الكسب. And so Allah attributed that to him, to the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, from the perspective of acquiring the deed. وَنَفَى عَنْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ تَكْوِينٍ, and he negated it from him from the perspective of creating. أَنْ يَكُونَ خَالِقًا لِرَمْيِهِ, he negated from him that he would be the creator of his throwing. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, said the author, may Allah have mercy on him. وكلامه قديم, and his speech is eternal. كسائر صفاته, like the rest of his attributes, meaning as is the judgment of the rest of his attributes. لأنه سبحانه مباين لجميع المخلوقات, because he, the glorified, is mubayin, distinct, meaning different from all of the creations. Distinct here means different, not separate. Doesn't mean he's separate, means he's different. So this word mubayin, we use it, Ahlus Sunnah, and the Mushabbiha use it also, the God comparers. When we say Allah is mubayin, we mean that he is different. When they say that Allah is mubayin, they mean he is separate over his creations, separated from them, very high and far away from them. Inshallah, we'll come back to that. مباين لجميع المخلوقات في الذات والصفات والأفعال. He is distinct from all of the creations in the self and the attributes and the doings or actions, the doing of God or the acts of God. So doings of God, that works. And the act of God, I say that works. Allah knows best there. The action of God, I don't know if there's a difference there. Regardless, though, it means his creating. His doing is his creating. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Glorified and exalted is he. Amma yaqulu zalimun. From what the unjust say about him. Uluwan kabira. With great exaltation. He is exalted and glorified with great exaltation. Ash-sharh, the explanation. أن كلام الله وقدرته ومشيئته وسمعه وبصره وعلمه وبقاءه وحياته is that the speech of Allah and his power and his will and his hearing and his sight and his knowledge and his everlastingness and his life. هذه الصفات صفات ثابتة لذات الله الأزلي الأبدي. These attributes are confirmed for the eternal, everlasting self of Allah. Notice here the repetition of the conjunction and, so that's Arabic. Usually in English, and I don't know if this is originally, probably if you research older English, you'll find different things. But usually in English, we'll just reserve the conjunction for the last word. So that way I would read it as, the explanation is that the speech of Allah, his power, his will, his hearing, his sight, his knowledge, his everlastingness, and his power, هذه الصفات صفات ثابتة لذات الله الأزلي الأبدي. These attributes are attributes confirmed for the eternal, everlasting self of Allah. Also, this word in Arabic, that, which we're translating as self, that's a feminine word in Arabic. But the Shaykh treats it like a masculine word. That's why he didn't say, بِذَاتِ اللَّهِ الْأَزَلِيَّةِ الْأَبَدِيَّةِ. But had he said it, it would not have been haram. And it would not have been devious. فَهِيَ أَزَلِيَّةٌ أَبَدِيَّةٌ. Thus, those attributes are eternal and everlasting. لأن الذات الأزلية لا يقوم به صفة حادثة. because the eternal self would not have a created attribute. Yani, because the eternal self, there would not be confirmed by it a created attribute. You wouldn't confirm by an eternal self a created attribute. فَكَلَامُهُ قَدِيمٌ أَزَلِي. Thus, his speech is eternal, beginningless. لَا ابْتِدَاءَ لَهُ. It has no start. وَمَا كَانَ كَذَلِكَ فَلَا يَكُونُ حَرْفًا وَصَوْتًا وَلُغَةً. And so whatever was as such would not be a letter and a sound and a language. وَلَا يُبْتَدَأُ وَلَا يُخْتَتَمْ. And it would not be started and it would not be stopped. And notice here that the Sheikh didn't say, nor a word. He doesn't say that. Nothing that I ever saw from him that he said that. He says his speech is not a letter or a sound or a language, and he doesn't say, or a word or a kalima, because the speech of Allah, kalamuhu, one of its names is kalimatuhu, his word. It's the same attribute, a different name for the same attribute, kalimatullah. The word of Allah means the speech of Allah. And this same attribute, you can even call it kalimatullah, the words of Allah, without the meaning of plurality, though. Doesn't mean more than one. When you say kalimatullah, then in that case, it's going to be like saying, like when Allah refers to himself as we. It doesn't mean more than one. It's for glorification. Calling his one eternal everlasting speech kalimatullah, the words of God, is for glorification and not for confirming parts and pieces. وَلِذَلِكَ لَا يُقَالُ عَنِ اللَّهِ نَاطِقٌ. For that, it is not said about Allah, pronouncer or utterer. لأنه لا يتكلم بحرف وصوت, because he does not speak with a letter and a sound. بل يقال متكلم. Rather, it is said about him, speaker. لأنه يتكلم بكلام, because he speaks with a speech. So he's a speaker. ليس بحرف وصوت, a speech that's not of a letter and a sound. So he's a speaker, not an utterer or a pronouncer. فالقرآن والتوراة والإنجيل والزبور وسائر كتب الله. Thus, the Quran and the Torah and the Injil and the Zabur and the rest of the books of God, إن قصد بها الكلام الذاتي, if what's meant by them is the self-speech, is God's self-speech, فهي أزلية, then that reference, what's being referenced, is eternal. ليست بحرف ولا صوت. It's not of letter nor sound. وإن قصد بها اللفظ المنزل, and if what's meant by them is the revealed expression, الذي بعضه بلغة العرب, that which some of it was revealed in the language of the Arabs, وبعضه بالعبرانية, and some of it was revealed in Hebrew, وبعضه بالسريانية, and some of it was revealed in Assyrian or Syriac or Aramaic. فهو حادث مخلوق لله, then that's an event, something created by Allah. لكنها ليست من تصنيف ملك ولا بشر. However, it is not the authoring of an angel nor a human. فهي عبارات عن الكلام الذاتي الذي لا يوصف بأنه عربي ولا بأنه عبراني, ولا بأنه سرياني. Thus, they are expressions, yani things they refer to the self-speech, which is not described as being Arabic, nor as being Hebrew, nor as being Syriac. Syriac, by the way, is different from Syrian. So when we say Suryani, we're not saying from Syria. If we say Syriac. So Syrian is Suri, not Suryani. So Suryani is Assyrian or Syriac or Aramaic. وَكُلٌّ يُطْلَقُ عَلَيْهِ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ. And all of those, the word kalamullah is used for them. أي أن صفة الكلام القائمة أي أن صفة الكلام القائمة بذات الله, meaning that the attribute of speech that is confirmed for the self of Allah, يعني يقال لها كلام الله, it is called the speech of God. واللفظ المنزل الذي هو عبارة عنه, and the revealed expression which refers to that self-speech, يقال له كلام الله, it is called the speech of God. فتبين أن القرآن له إطلاقان. And so it became clear that the word Al-Quran has two usages. أي له معنيان, meaning it has two meanings. الأول إطلاقه على الكلام الذاتي الذي ليس بحرف ولا صوت. The first is using it for the self-speech, that which is neither a letter nor a sound. ولا لغة عربية ولا غيرها, nor is it an Arabic language nor otherwise. والثاني إطلاقه على اللفظ المنزل الذي يقرأه المؤمنون. And the second is using it for the revealed speech, using that word Al-Quran for the revealed speech, and that's second, not first, for the revealed speech that the believers recite, that miraculous composition. Let's stop here and let me see your questions. Question: in time travel, is the denial of destiny in the fact that they say they travel in time, which is denial of the events that are presently occurring, which is the destiny? Yeah, what they're saying that whatever happened in time changed. So that's the denial of destiny. They're saying something happened, for example, and then in their claim, someone came back from the future to the, in their claim, to the past. He came from the future to the past, which would be the present. And then he does something, and then something happens in the future. It changes. Like they say the Terminator came back so he could kill the mother of John Connor. And that way, John Connor will never be born, so that he would become the resistance leader in the future. So that's blasphemy. That's a denial of destiny. There's no way to tell that story while confirming destiny, because that's blasphemy. You said, isn't that also denying the events that are presently occurring? Well, yeah, in a way it would be denying that they did happen. Yeah, because they're saying something happened at some point in time, and then that point became the past. So now you're in a later point of time, which is the future compared to that. So that's done. But then someone, they say, he leaves his present time which is the future compared to the past. And he goes back to the past, which would then become the present. He's there. And then his interactions with that time would alter the future. So it won't be the way it was when he was in the future. So that's blasphemy. All of that is a denial of destiny. And those ruin stories, by the way, so many times. Many, many stories that have that, they don't work because it doesn't make sense. So it ruins the story. Even that so-called Terminator movie, the franchise, yani, the succession of stories, just became twisted and jumbled, etc. Doesn't make sense. They kept making installments to the story, so that just became, even the first story doesn't make sense, but the more they add, the worse it gets. He said this is important to teach to this generation. Yes, that is true. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.